Welcome to IDG Talks. My name is Anastasia Lavrina. In this edition, we will talk about green energy, renewables, and the upcoming event, COP29, to be held in Baku in November 2024. My guest today from Greece is Kostis Geropoulos, co-founder, Director of Energy and Climate Policy and Security at NE Global Media. Warm welcome to IDG Talks.
Thank you, Anastasia. It's a pleasure to be back.
And my first question, what are the most important elements you can note in the green energy transition at a global level?
Well, I mean, there is an agreement that we have to tackle climate change, and it seems like there is also from the previous COP that this is the road to green energies. Basically, in order to reduce CO2 emissions, we have to have an energy transition. The issue is that and this is going to be an issue on COP29, is that you have to balance different points of view, and you also have to balance the different modes of transition globally, because one of the issues is how you can have a just energy transition and at the same time also have energy security. So in that respect, COP29 is going to be a great opportunity to balance all these kinds of different points of view. And of course, it's a great responsibility, but also there's a huge expectations from Azerbaijan to play that role. And what we've seen is and that have started like months ago when Azerbaijan was announced as the COP29 host country, is that exactly, that the negotiations have already started. And we've seen this in summits leading up to already, that would lead up to COP29. There's already we've seen the president designate an ecology minister hold meetings in Baku during the conferences that we had recently, but also traveling around the world. And I think Azerbaijan is positioned in a special as an energy supplier, tradition in oil and gas, but also now moving towards green energy to balance all those views.
Right. So attending the World Forum on Intercultural Dialogue held in Baku, you participated in some sessions on climate change. Can you elaborate on Azerbaijan's current stance and commitments regarding greenhouse gas emissions reductions and transitioning towards renewable energy?
That's right, Anastasia. I was in Baku at the beginning of this month, and of course, it was a forum on intercultural dialogue, but there were several sessions on climate change and especially on energy transition. There was a special session chaired by the president designate and the ecology minister of Azerbaijan, where he discussed the country plans towards energy transition and the road leading up to COP29. And actually another interesting session, as we have really close ties to Brussels, was the effect of climate change on cultural heritage. And one of those sessions, it was Nupur Tron, from the founder and director of General of Frison Horta. She was there, and also representatives from China and all around the world. And it was actually a very interesting session to see how, traditionally it's not, climate change affects all kinds of life, but the effect on cultural heritage is a very important one and often misunderstood and not paid special attention. So that was an interesting session during the cultural dialogue. We also had the opportunity to go down to Akdam, and there was a session held there, and we also discussed the possibility of given that those zones are now announced by the president of Azerbaijan as green zones, how this is, how, you could have energy transition. And there's been a lot of, Azerbaijan is, has an enormous potential on solar and wind energy. being a big part of it. They're discussing about 5 gigawatts of renewable energy in the coming years, but the potential is up to 150 gigawatts because it's positioned in the Caspian Sea, Baku, the capital. And there's a lot of discussion not only to export renewable energy to Europe, like with via electricity cable, for example, between, underneath the Black Sea to Romania, through Georgia to Romania and Hungary, Bulgaria and Hungary, but also make the energy transition in the within the country, and that, have a better quality of life, and also help reduce emissions in the country itself, as well as in Central Asia and the Caucasus.
Well, we will definitely come back to the topic about COP29. But before that, given Azerbaijan's geographic location and economic interests, how does it navigate the balance between traditional energy sources and renewable energy development? Your personal opinion.
Well, it's a great opportunity because historically Azerbaijan is an oil and gas producing country. There is a discussion whether we had COP28 also hosted by an oil and gas producer, but the argument here is that these countries know they're already producing fossil fuels, but they can become an example of success in energy transition as well. Having really good ties also with the Middle East and other traditional oil and gas producers, Azerbaijan can play a mediating role. And also at the same time, we've seen that, again, going back to Brussels and the European Union, that the EU has pledged its support and commitment to the highest level with Azerbaijan to support it in the hosting COP29. And this is, a good opportunity not only to, help the energy security of the European Union, but at the same time, contribute in meeting the green energy goals. Part of it could also be, exporting hydrogen. We've seen a lot of discussion about hydrogen production, and Azerbaijan is also looking into that. And it's also, a transit country, which is, can be, play a leading role in Central Asia and in exporting that energy to Europe and other parts of the world.
Looking beyond COP29, what long-term strategies or policies is Azerbaijan considering to sustain its momentum in combating climate change and promoting green energy post-conference?
The green energy transition is a very long plan. There is not, obviously, all those projects that have been discussed are not for until November, when COP29 takes place. The overall strategies, has been to gradually start looking at the potential of green energy and, also improving the quality of life within the country. Again, when we go back to the projects like exporting electricity, for example, to Europe via Black Sea, that's a project that's going to take many, many years to materialize. Same thing as happened for years before when oil and gas pipelines were planned. At the same time, also, we've seen that gas can play a role as an energy transition fuel. So we've seen that, for example, that Azerbaijan has agreed with the South Gas Corridor to double its capacity, which means that you also have you will need gas for energy security, but also as a fuel that can play an important role in transition. You need all those kinds of different kinds of energy forms in order to reach reduce CO2 emissions. Not one particular form of energy can can make that happen.
So COP29 will focus on climate finance. Could you provide insights into the current state of global climate finance, including funding mechanism, sources of funding, and allocation trends?
Yeah, indeed, that's a very important uh, form of part of COP29, and it's also we've seen that during COP28 there was an agreement, discussion of what kind of sources of climate finance. And I think Azerbaijan's role here is to bridge these differences and become a mediator in all these different points of view, but also to bring in international collaborators in order to raise those funds, which, part of it would come from governments, a lot of it would come from the private sector. Also, there is an issue of, climate justice and, financing, for example, countries that are suffer the most from climate change. There's a discussion about the global south and countries that need to have more aid and more help them not only make the green energy transition, because a lot of those countries actually do not contribute that much to CO2, but actually help them deal with the devastating effects of climate change that we've seen, and actually help prevent future catastrophes like from erosion and heat and different climate extreme weather conditions. So I think the major task of climate finance is to balance all those different points of view, and with the help of international collaborators and funding mechanisms, private sector, the European Union, and the US, is to find in other countries is to find the best way forward to raise those funds and the best way to use them.
So, in light of the European Green Deal and its implications for neighboring countries, what strategies Azerbaijan can consider to enhance its competitiveness and attractiveness as a partner for sustainable energy investments and collaborations?
Yeah, the European Union, the EU Green Deal, it does not just is not only limited within the European Union, but expands to all its partners and neighboring countries. And we've seen that, for example, going back to the previous issue of, exporting energy to Europe, there's also the possibility of production, not only production of energy, but also we've seen for example, the special economic zone in Azerbaijan. You can produce locally wind blades or solar panels, and so you don't have to export them from other countries. But European companies, and we've already seen, for example, British Petroleum, a lot of other solar energy companies and wind energy companies, and we've seen that in the different. I think you have also the Baku Energy Week in the beginning of next month, and we're seeing like Wind Europe being present there. We've seen Secretary of Energy Geoffrey Pyatt being there. There's a lot of interest in Azerbaijan, as not only as a country which produces energy, but also as a country where you can encourage investment and locally produce, bring in companies which can actually produce energy in its territory and then export it to Europe, or use it domestically. So this kind of bringing in not only different countries, but part of the Green Deal is to bring in the private sector as well and foreign investment.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining our program today.
It's always a pleasure, Anastasia. Hope to see you again soon.